Hello, I am Radagast, and this is Cosmic Emporium number 2. And of course, I'm joined by the Friar, Gio. Hello, Gio.
Hey, how you doing, man? I'm here. Um, Glad to be back. It's been another wild week of things going by, and I assume that many are just as confused as I am with what we've been seeing. But I'm still open-minded about it all, and I'm just going to observe. But there's some things I've been seeing and reading that I want to pay some heed to tonight.
Okay, well, how about some show notes?
Okay. I tell you what, let's see. We've been talking about this, and we pretty much have decided that we'd like to do this weekly,
Right.
a video weekly, and also the possibility of bi-weekly doing a show with a invited guest, or maybe two guests, depending. But that's to be seen. But to have an invited guest. And I already have one person that's particularly interested, and we can initiate that, in the coming week. But I'd like to
We can call it Voices from the Forum.
yeah, and give anyone that's wanting to a platform to come on and not only talk about an issue that's of interest to them, but also to let's say, make themselves more familiar with those that they interact with. And I think it's a good idea to give at least a voice to some of these threads and posts by members that we know, not just only on the Truth, but on other forums as well that might be interested. And I just think it's a good thing to do, and that's really where I would hope that we would go in the future. But saying that, let's say tonight's show, and then next week's show we'll have a guest, and then the week after we'll go back and follow what's happening, because it's gonna keep coming. I feel for the next few months.
We're going to be experiencing the Trump train.
Yes, the wild Trump train. Now, first, what's got my attention this week, and really not because I want to say that even though I've followed the vaccination issue, I haven't followed it like some. I don't have children that are of the age. I do have a daughter, that's a young woman and mother herself, and I have a granddaughter, and I'm concerned about it, but I guess I'm not as close to it like some people are. And I should be. And what got my attention this week was obviously the John Rappaport story of RFK Jr. Now, why don't you go on and explain what I'm talking about, because you probably say it better than I can, about the blog, but also the video associated.
Well, it was just, I think it was 2009, on one of Chuck Scarborough's many shows that he has on cable TV.
Yeah, 2007. Yeah.
Oh, 2007. And he was speaking to RFK Jr. And RFK Jr. Has somebody who's done a lot of investigations. And I think, even from what I can tell, I know at that time he had done a Rolling Stone article, basically talking about the dangers of some of the preservatives and other additives that are put into vaccines. And even at that time, that they were showing a lot of incidental evidence of the use of these vaccines, and then neurological ramifications. Now, I'm trying to stay away from the word autism per se, only because of somebody with the Asperger's syndrome of thing. I mean, for me, it was a soul path. And also, I didn't get all those vaccines when I was a kid. The only vaccine I had when I was a kid was the smallpox one. I had measles, I had mumps, I had everything, and to me, it's the way to get properly inoculated. And I loved missing 2 weeks of school at a time. It was great.
Yes, I Yeah, we're both basically in the same generation, a year or so separated in birth, but we had the same experiences. What I'm real concerned about after I listened to that video, because I had never seen it before or heard it before, and it really got my attention, because not that 2007 is a time to really, but that's 10 years ago, obviously. So we can see the association to where maybe Trump, who obviously is concerned about this, and I feel that it's his concern because of his own son Barron. I am of the mind that he has some effects from something that he was given a shot. I'm speculating on this because it's not been confirmed, but my intuition says yes, it happened. And is he mildly affected? By my observations, I would say so. But like I said, these are my opinions. I don't expect anyone to agree with it, but I think a lot of people do see where I'm going with this. Now, saying that, when you look at the CDC, and this week I've been looking into the CDC, at least from a different perspective that I ever had before, and looking at its history when it was started, and that was immediately after World War II in 1946, down in Atlanta. It started as a malaria study research center, and it was set up to do, because that time in the South, even that close in history, there was still a lot of malaria in the Southeast and South. So it was set up, believe it or not, by the CEO of Coca-Cola, of all places, corporation, and the president of Coca-Cola at the time initiated research money from Emory University to go to property being purchased to expand this malaria research group into what is now called the CDC. And so that's initially how it started.
Or the Center for Disease Control.
Yeah, and prevention that's on there, but they cut that off, at least in its avatar, so to speak. Prevention, I love that word. Isn't it interesting that they cut it off? Prevention. Yeah. Now, my feelings about this, after looking into the history of some of this, is it might go back as far as into the 30s. And my speculation is that the United States government back in that time, there was an underbelly of what I feel Nazi sympathizers, just like there was in Britain, there was here in the United States, even though it was not as, it was very serious. And in some cities like New York and everything, the Nazis had rallies and everything. Most of them were former Germans that were sympathetic, with the fatherland and everything. And that was okay in the up and up. But it did get a little dicey towards the mid and late 30s. But I think there was influences in the U.S. government that took upon themselves to adapt some of this thinking. And it was there and carried over through the war and into, the new age, as we know, after post-World War II. And the reason why I say that is because there was a lot of anti-communism going on back in the 30s. That was the boogeyman.
Yeah, that was the Red Scare.
Yes. And when there's those in the community that do believe, the Nazi influence is obviously there in our U.S. government, as well as other national governments now. And it never went away. It just, transmuted into these other governments and has been there as a ghost, so to speak.
Yeah, well, it's quietly leaking out from different people around, and I'm hearing it from more and more people, and maybe it's because the meme is making around, is that basically when the German army surrendered, the German government never surrendered.
That's right.
So basically they're a government in exile.
Yeah. Yes, and saying that, I mean, of course, we know from Paperclip and other invites, they brought a lot of Nazis to the
But
country.
where are they exiled is a good question.
Yeah, yeah, and okay, so saying that, that's no biggie. But what I see is, in '47, with the CIA being officially initiated, and all these other government agencies that just out of nowhere just sprung up. Now, my speculation is that FDR, for the most part, if he knew it, he didn't really pay much heed to it because he had too many things on his plate, with the depression as well as, the threats and problems with the.
Getting polio didn't help him either.
Yeah, he had a lot of medical issues, but saying that, he just didn't know what was going on to control it, and he probably couldn't control it if he wanted to. But all this stuff was there at the startup right after World War II. And this gets into the UFO stuff as well, which I'm starting, and I'm not going to make a statement saying I don't believe in UFOs, because obviously I've seen them, and I don't know to some extent where they come from.
Like whose they are?
Yeah, I've seen several types,
Mm-hmm.
and I worked down in for the U.S. government, and this is another job I had, and it's a very interesting job. After
Don't tell me if you're going to have to kill me.
I had a job at the Atlantic Underwater Testing Evaluation Center down in the Bahamas, and I got the job through medical connections, people that I worked for, a doctor's group, and I got a job, to work over there in a medical capacity. That's where I ended up having my injury with my back, with the helicopter and whatnot. But this is where I saw dimensional ships coming up out of the water, USOs. So even back in the late '70s, early '80s, I knew something was amok. But when I started seeing, and I saw on 2 occasions, dimensional ships appearing and then dissipating, coming up from the water and then just disappearing. And I had another person with me, a security person of all, on the base. So it wasn't just my mind, working. But even as a young man, I also saw things in the '60s out around DC. So saying that, I've always had this idea that something's going on, that isn't right with our government. And my belief is that a lot of the stuff we're seeing is us in cahoots with something. And I don't think I'm by myself there. But getting back to the CDC and the plans with the CIA, obviously they're using us as cattle, as guinea pigs, and to know who's managing it and how it's being managed. I'm sure it's all controlled and compartmentalized, I should say, and that's the way it is. So we shouldn't be surprised when we hear that they're giving our children mercury, large doses of mercury, and poisoning them and using them as guinea pigs. Isn't it kind of funny that the CDC is there to study diabetes, and one of its founding sponsors is Coca-Cola, a sweetie drink manufacturer. It just doesn't make sense. And diabetes has gotten worse over the decades.
Yes.
Since malaria. One of the first things I ever studied at university and did papers on was malaria. There's cures for it. Malaria can come back. You can get it again, depending, where you live and everything. But they can eliminate it. And they have vaccines for it. But do we really do anything about it? How many children, 1 million plus a year, die in the world, from the effects of it? So. They're not doing anything about disease.
I find it's going to be very interesting. I mean, if he follows through and comes out with some of his hard-hitting cover-ups, it's going to have a lot of impact. First of all, people who are allowed to hear it and accept it as factual science, there's going to be a lot of anger on people who expose their children to this.
Yes.
And And then the other thing is also, there are a lot of people who currently seem to be lost in, this a paradigm of left, right, Trump, anti-Trump, and whatever. And I'm just thinking about what kind of curveball this is going to throw, because obviously even RFK cannot be considered a Republican. He was up there representing Standing Rock. So he's kind of a liberal darling, all right? Now, but the liberals right now are at war with Trump.
Right.
And so here comes a liberal darling exposing this thing. And to me, the dissonance that's going to result from people who are just like, I'm glad for this information, but it came from Trump. I mean, and then the people are just going to be horrified from the information alone, because it's horrifying. I'm quite sure there's going to be attempts at ass cover up. And so, going to have one announcement coming, from Robert RFK and the White House, and then you're going to have CNN reporting something. I mean, I can only imagine what kind of firestorm this is going to unleash.
Yeah, it's stuff so powerful it could bring down the government. That's why I feel the RFK Jr. Connection is so important, and why it got my attention, because if he is brought in to the loop of the presidency, and I do feel that RFK as well as the Kennedys in many ways have to resent the the secret government, so to speak, and they're. It just doesn't go away, especially that generation, the first, the immediate generation after RFK and JFK were assassinated. So it's there. It's not going to go away. And I think even if RFK can't come through with it, it's still going to be there. This is why I won't go against Trump right now, because even with all the craziness going on, and then what I mean is the stirring up of the pot that he's doing, I want to see what he is going to, rattle, to really initiate real change. It's not going to be pretty, as I said last week. It's going to get bloody, and people have got to understand that. And they can get out and protest, and they can do these things and everything.
I just think this is a great time, no matter what's on your mind, but things you'd like to see happen. This is a guy who talking about President Trump, who in his inauguration address said, this is where Washington gives the power back to the people. Well, this is a time, and anybody, I don't care what your political stripe is. If you have a legitimate gripe, if you can speak whatever it is that's on your mind and what a solution might look like, then this is a time for the people who are being told to have a voice to use it. It's hard. The worst thing to do is be given an opportunity that everybody doesn't hear the same way.
Yeah, I agree. There's no better time. And if you're not going to say nothing, then so be it. But so I'm not going to go against, the people that voted for Trump. I didn't vote for him.
Neither did I.
And
I didn't vote. Let me be clean about that.
And in many ways, I wish I didn't, because everyone that I wanted to get in didn't get in, and I'm talking about even locally. So, but saying that, that's the way it is. But yeah, so I'm gonna give him a pass. I'm gonna continue giving him a pass, and that leads into this next thing with the NAFTA that I want to talk about. Because he's stirring the pot down on the border. And I do believe that we need to renegotiate the NAFTA agreement, not only with Mexico, but also with Canada. Mm-hmm. But I don't see any major changes. I just see some adjustments that need to be done. Not a 20% tariff on goods coming and going, because that's only going to hurt Americans. And I mean the regular people, you and me.
Yeah.
Everything that's made down there comes back to us, and I should say they're our chief trading partner, both Canada and Mexico. So now that this has been initiated, 15 years on, you just can't go backwards there.
Yeah, we don't need an increase in food prices, that's for sure.
Well, that's where it would go immediately. you know, and it's all, and like you just said, prices have gone up and they keep going up. Um, I know that you like fresh food as well as I do, and I'm talking about produce and whatnot, you know,
Yeah,
not processed foods. Well,
correct.
this is where a lot of it comes from, especially in off season. So, yeah, we hopefully that with Trump and President Pienta, is that say it right?
I thought it was
Enrico,
I
Enrico,
thought it was Niente.
Niente,
Okay,
Enrico,
Niente.
Enrico Niente, who is not doing too well himself. I think he's got an approval rating of 12 right now.
Yeah.
And we don't want to stir up the pot with the leftists because that's where we could have some problems.
Well, I understand that Trump and Niente have like decided to at least cool the hot words via social media. That was a bad idea.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, look, I'm learning a little bit more about the president, because you kind of, you want to know the animal you're dealing with. And it's, it seems to me that part of his negotiating style is to be so completely outrageous at the outset. And that when he kind of comes in and then shows another face, it's like, oh, I think I can deal with this. I just think it's part of his crazy doing how he does his art of the deal.
Yeah, I think that's very true.
And he's going to drive the Chinese crazy. He's going to drive those merchants crazy.
Yeah, they're next. They're next if we get through this NAFTA thing.
Well, to me, that what it is, I mean, they really pride themselves on being a mercantile culture for centuries, if not millennia. Okay.
That's right.
So it's like, okay, we know a little bit about this buy and sell stuff, and they do. And I think that in many ways they're going to find an absolute horror show from their perspective for Trump, because he's going to come more like a businessman, more like the businessmen that they're used to dealing with amongst themselves. And I think they're going to really not like him, but I know they'll respect him because they're going to, first of all, if he has a modus operandi of that he brags a lot, then he settles in, they're going to pick that up right away. They'll get that down. But then there's still going to be the negotiator. And I don't think they're used to hard-nosed U.S. negotiations. And that's they're going to hate it. They really are.
Yeah, because it's up to this point, the United States has basically opened the door to the store, and it's been like that for a couple decades now, since the Clintons at least.
Because there are people who are making large sums of money over opening our doors. I mean,
right.
these are the globalists that we're talking about, where they don't have an allegiance to a certain people. It's not that they have to think that people's the best, but stick with your tribe.
Right. So I mean, we'll see what happens there. But anyway, getting back to NAFTA, I do see things smoothing out and negotiations happening. But he's still signing things, and that gets to the immigration thing, which is real hot this weekend.
Can we call that the clusterfuck of the week?
Yes, that's the clusterfuck. He really screwed some people, and I'm not talking about necessarily terrorists, but he did stop people from coming and going. And there's a lot of people that have been told not to leave the country now and advised to seek legal immigration advice before they leave, that want to go on trips that have green cards or working resident tickets here. So, but the ones that were left overseas and in process, God, it's going to take weeks to filter all this stuff out.
Okay, if you go ahead, you finish your thought, because I'll go off on a little tangent. Sorry.
I think it needed to happen. I think it's a wake-up call to everyone that we're not going to do business as usual. Other countries have already initiated this type of screening for visas. I mean, you try to go anywhere as an American, and unless you get a job offer from that country, that national country, to come in, it's very hard to get in and stay. And you can't hide like they do in America. It's not that easy to hide in some of these smaller countries. In America, you can pretty much blend in, and we've been allowing it for so long that there's a backlog of people, that have been here, decades. And so it's scared a lot of people.
Yeah.
But we'll work this out. I don't think it's his intent, because obviously he has a lot of, foreigners working for his company
Yeah,
himself.
I don't take this as an anti-human or even a callous move. I think that it was a hard move. I mean, in many ways, to me, it's a form of, shall we call, national hygiene from a holistic perspective.
Yeah.
And to me, it's obvious that the hygiene has been poor. So apparently, what the Homeland Security was saying, I guess at certain airports, is like, we don't know what we're doing. Well, that's probably the first true thing they said in a long time.
Yeah. Because they're going over regulations. Now, obviously, people are going to say that he's breaking laws here, and in some cases, he is. He's going.
Actually, I have some people who've looked into it, said there are no laws that he's breaking.
Well, there's regulations that he's going against, and so he's setting a new precedent. But there are things on the book.
But I think what he has to do is, if he's going to get it doing properly with just hygiene, this isn't about that you have to kind of grind everything to a stop for a second. Everybody, just needs to stop for a few days. And so we can kind of take a deep breath. Who's who? What's everybody? Okay, here, I just think it's a temporary reset.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to quite have the open borders, but no, I mean, for me, every country, this isn't just about America. I mean, we owe it to each other to know who our guests are, at least at the most cursorily of fashions. And also, I mean, one of the things when apparently Trump said no Syrian refugees, although apparently there was a little option for Syrian Christians, because the Christians in the Mideast are really catching it hard. Mm-hmm. But I mean, in many ways, I'm thinking like, you know what? You guys don't have to come here, because now we're not going to play dirty games with ISIS, and actually, instead of running, why don't you stay there and fix it up, because now you can.
Yeah. Another interesting response was from Iran, because they immediately, put on the stop of any Americans coming into, Tehran.
All 2 people a year?
Well, this is also going to affect a lot of Iranian nationalists that travel back and forth, families and stuff. So that's stopped. So that's going to, it's worth noting, because Iran obviously is going to play hardball with us, but it doesn't really matter. We've had no relationships with them since for 15 years now. So
yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to disparage Iran as a company. Of course, I picked hyperbole by saying 2 people.
Well, it's a family.
I'm just trying to say, it would possibly be called tit for tat.
Yeah, it's not a big tourist market for Americans, but there are a lot of Americans that go and do business there, as well as families.
Most people who go there love it. I mean, it's
a
unique country.
Yeah. So it's another pot stirred, and where it's going to start, this week, I don't even know, but I can't even begin to guess.
Well, I'm sure it'll start with more protests of some sort.
Oh, on that, yeah. Well, it's going to, I think one aspect of his whole approach is confusion, because as long as he keeps everyone just in a state of shock, it puts a mindset in all of us. I mean, I'm already there, and I think you are as well. We'll agree to that I'm open to change now, that nothing can be as worse as it was, where we were almost zero growth, no jobs, no prospects for the future, where children, young adults are moving back in with their families, and people with master's degrees working at Starbucks and stuff. I mean, this is where we're at. Mm-hmm. So something's got to change. I mean, otherwise we're going to literally be fighting in the streets, and that could get really bloody. So this is our last chance, really, to stay as a nation, I feel. And as I said last week, that I don't see him lasting more than 4 years. I obviously, because of his age and maybe health reasons, I see that.
I'm just wondering if he'll be able to, be able to take it from a psychic thing, because I think he's tuned in a little bit. I really do.
Well, I'm not saying that he can't take it. I'm just saying that because of all the effects of this, I just don't see him being 4 years. I see other people coming in to fill it.
Yeah.
but I don't want to repeat myself from last week on that. But yeah, it's there's going to the issues are going to be coming fast and hard. I found it interesting that with Prime Minister May in Washington Friday, and guess where she was today? She was in Turkey
Oh,
selling jets to the president, of Turkey, and so she's out and about too, doing business.
mm-hmm.
That says something right there. I think she's a hawk for NATO. Britain is, and of course, Germany, I believe, is as well. I don't know about France. You never know about France, but they want to keep NATO going, and they want to keep their arms sales going.
Well, they want to keep Turkey in NATO. I mean, that's starting to get a little shaky. Whether Turkey will stay in NATO.
Well, I see it possibility as him playing both sides, and we'll get into Putin thing in a moment. But I see the president there playing both sides to get what he wants, but I see him staying in NATO because I think it's a safe place for him. He's got too much involved with his own security not to. And but that was a brilliant move by May to go over there and do that. I just found it fascinating. She went straight from Washington there, which tells me she spoke to someone in Washington.
Right.
You know what I mean? The Pentagon. She was here for other meetings, just not Trump. So that tells you something there. What's in there? Oh, and the Putin thing. And then they had an hour conversation today. It was reported that it went well.
Mm-hmm.
They discussed a lot of issues in general, and I think that's I think we're going to see good things there.
I do too.
But I do think that Putin is a realist just like myself, and he's gonna he's a brilliant man, and he's gonna watch Trump. But I think what he wanted off the front burner was any threat of a confrontation between us and Russia.
Right.
And I think he feels that he can relax a little bit there. But like I said, as last week, you and I are concerned with China because they don't react in the same way as the Western man does. And I'm hoping that the issues down in the South China Sea, that Trump will use that as a negotiating chip to deal with some other pressing business that we're having. I'm not comfortable with
the behavior, the belligerence around these islands. I mean, I just feel like if the locals aren't complaining, then there should be no need for
they are, but they Vietnam, and not so much now the Philippines, but Vietnam has. But let's face it, what is our interest there? Our biggest interest is Taiwan, but the reality is Taiwan, is a province,
and it's way north of the islands anyway.
Yeah. How would we feel if Russia came back over into the Caribbean and decided not Cuba now? We're talking about Puerto Rico.
Mm-hmm.
Puerto Rico is on dicey situation, as being a protector of the United States. What if they decided they wanted to go with Russia?
Everybody knows how bad that looks. The only country that doesn't seem to care that it looks like a bully is the United States.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody else knows that. Even China knows it's pushing it in those islands, but it intends to enforce. It's trying to reclaim some of its old glory. It is called the South China Sea. So to me, this is hardly worth world powers saber rattling over.
Yes, and what I see happening is that Taiwan will be absorbed as a protectorate of mainland China again. It will be allowed to keep some sovereignty, obviously, because of its manufacturing capabilities and its market in the world. But it will eventually, in the near future, be taken back in, just like Hong Kong was. And rightfully so. I mean, that's the way it is. But it's not for us to really.
No.
It's not our battle. You know what I mean? And it's too close to China for us to even think about protecting or trying to prevent. So I see some bargaining room there for Trump to do other things with that. And meaning call back our Navy from enticing or inciting the Chinese, and use that chip as a bargaining chip for some other things, especially in the economics. But there you go. I mean, it's so much stuff.
Yep.
Is there anything you want to discuss here that I haven't?
No, I mean, you're kind of closing on the immigration thing. I mean, it is very interesting. Probably one of the few places you're going to see this kind of coverage is out on Alex Jones' YouTube feed, and where they will actually show people from other countries, Venezuela, sometimes Colombia. One guy, I forget where he was. I forget what country he was, but he was from an African, or he was an African descendant himself.
Mm-hmm.
But they had all come in legitimately, and let me tell you, man, they had no problem with what President Trump is doing.
Well, anyone that's gone through that immigration process, which can take years and years, not only just getting here, but even once you're here, a couple of years there, just to even attempt to be get the rights as a resident or working permit or whatever, a green card. Yeah, I don't blame them. I mean, it's very, it's hard. It's frustrating. It's time consuming. It takes a lot of life out of a person, if not a family. So you can't blame them for resenting it. And I think in many cases our immigrants, and I say our immigrants are newer immigrants because we're all pretty much immigrants. The newer immigrants are more loyal to the country than most of us that have been born here and lived here for decades.
That's right. Yeah.
At least the ones I've met are. I mean, they know more about. One of the things I had to do when I graduated from university is you have to take a government course, at least in the state of Illinois, and you got to go back. And I was pretty good, government anyway, and so I knew these things, but I had to go back and revamp myself to take the test so I can graduate. And yeah, you got to know a lot of stuff. You got to know a lot of stuff to become a citizen. And so I sympathize with him and I agree with him. And I think the only thing that troubles me about the whole ban right now in immigration is the thing against Muslims. I think it needs to be clarified. We're not against Muslims. I mean, obviously, mm-hmm. There's so many millions of Arab and Iranians and Muslims from all over the world that live in this country and are good citizens and go about their lives every day. With a lot of them have businesses of their own. Yeah. So we can't look at Muslims as being the problem. The problem is our policies, the government's policies in the past that have created this vacuum. Mm-hmm. So hopefully Trump can resolve this. I don't see him as the bully as a lot of people want to make him. He's spastic. He's spastic as hell, and he's even more so than me that I can't even like I said, keep up with what he's doing daily. I try, but I've kind of pushed myself away, and I suggest again to others, push away from this. Don't buy into all this, media stuff. Yeah. And I cover media all day long. I mean, people say, how could you listen to that? How can you read that? SMSM. Listen, you don't know what's going on until you read all of it or look at it all. Mm-hmm. You can't just look at, this and say, oh, I know what's going on. No, because to be honest with you, a lot of people that follow these forums, they're two, 3, sometimes a week behind in the information they're getting. And I'm not degrading and putting down anyone. I try to keep, that's why I post as much as I do and share as much as I do, but I can't even keep up with it. If I try to keep up with what I'm consuming to the community, it'd be even more irritating to people that don't like my threads. so that's the way it is. But, you're going to have to be open. The thing about myself is I don't buy into it. And I've been doing this a long enough time to understand what's real and what's not real, at least what I should buy into and what not. Now, I'm not saying that I'm an expert, but I am good at what I do. and I spot things. And even though I don't converse well, as obviously those listening will attest to probably, I know my stories and I post them daily, and I give people, I think for the most part, a good view of what the hell's happening.
Yeah.
So saying that, I'll toot my own horn, but I want others to come on that I know that are just as good, if not better, in some ways, especially in specializing in particular interests that we all have, and I want to bring them, to our little talky talk, as Fred liked to put it.
Yeah.
And we can hear more in depth stuff. So that's.
I mean, even a hot topic on the forum. Every once in a while, we have them. Somebody's been in that conversation. Hey, let's bring it to life.
Yeah, because they know what's going on. I mean, we have some very special people that know these things inside out. I mean, I'm a generalist. I know a lot of stuff, but I'm not one that necessarily dives into one topic to the point of eccentric, if not obsessiveness. But I do like those types, because that's where you get the deep stuff when you need it. What do you want to call them? We'll call them our experts. as we bring them on for others to listen, to digest. How are we doing on time today?
I think we're coming up on 45 minutes.
What do you think?
Yeah, did we have a show?
Yeah, that's enough for today, I think. And like I said, next week we will bring someone on, if all goes right, and it should, at least from initial contact. And I won't say who or what, but it'll be a surprise, and that way people will come back and listen, because it won't be just me jabbering on, and we can let someone else talk, and we can ask some questions. Okay.
Can I ask if it's somebody from the One Truth Forum?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes.
Little plug for Malcolm in the One Truth.
Oh yeah, that's where most of them are hopefully going to come from.
Yeah.
I mean, we do know that we have other members, that jump from forums, and I do want to get some of those others on there, because I think it's important for them.
Oh, the forum hoppers.
Yeah, the forum hoppers. The immigrants.
Well, look, we're all looking over each other's sites. Sometimes, some of us are no longer members, so they don't see us logged in. But there we are, looking at the same articles every day.
Oh yeah, I monitor a lot of stuff. I won't say I do it as obsessively as I used to, because I want to add that in my opinion, I think that this little forum, as some have called it, or is a 3.0 compared to others, at least in the way it conducts itself. And I don't know if it needs to get big. I don't know if it needs thousands and thousands of members.
Just a little more active posting to me would be delightful.
Yes, I would encourage that. But I don't necessarily miss seeing the crazy stories that pop up on other forums. Daily. That it's like everyone's entitled to express themselves. Obviously, it's just, come on, let's be a little more creative about it, and get your at least thread titles to a catch.
Yeah.
I shouldn't go on anymore about that. That's rude of me to say that, but anyway.
Well, let me say goodnight to you then.
Okay. Until next week, we'll see you all. God bless everyone.
Okay. Thank you. God bless everyone.